What's up everybody, Nycove the Fox here, and welcome to a video where today I will be talking to you about my thoughts on the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I know it's probably a bit late, very late. By the time you see this, it's probably already like halfway through November, and I saw it on the 26th when it very first came out where I live. In fact, I got to see it twice by mistake because of a whole ticket mishap. So I got to see it on the 27th and the 26th. So I got to see it twice in a row at the same AMC theater. So that was kind of cool, I guess. Not a regrettable experience. It was worth the money, I will say. But today, I will be talking about my thoughts and opinions and my movie-going experience, all surrounding the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. As a fan who has been a fan since the way yonder days of 2014, the first month or second month that it had been out and Mark played it, I've been along for the ride. I mean, if you're here, you probably know that. So before I get into the details of this video, I will warn you all that there will be spoilers. I will be talking about the movie in as much detail as I can, because it corresponds to my opinions and what I think and theories and things like that. So if you have not seen the movie yet, I would recommend skipping this video until you have seen the movie and then come back, and then you can watch this video afterwards. If you hear scratching in the background, don't worry, that's just Timmy beating the hell out of his food dish because he thinks that somehow that's gonna make the food come out faster. Going into the movie, I guess I could say I had high expectations, but I also went into it knowing Blumhouse, knowing their history of films, and also just kind of going in with the mindset of Five Nights at Freddy's is goofy, okay? It does take itself seriously most of the time, but just the concept, really, is almost silly. Even as a fan who tries to explain it to someone who is not a fan, they kind of raise an eyebrow or kind of go, what? So, it's not... I went into seeing this movie with the mindset that it probably was gonna have comedy relief in it. It was probably not going to take itself seriously 100% of the time, and I had also read Scott's post that explicitly stated that this movie was made for the fan base. It was not made to appeal to a general audience or to please the critics. It was literally made full-heartedly for us, the fans, which I think is really cool. But there's a lot of video game or book adaptations that sometimes change the film too much to kind of more so appeal to critics or to appeal to a general audience or to make it understandable to an audience. Not to say that the Five Nights at Freddy's movie didn't also do that, and I will get into that later with the whole plot and everything, but it's nice to know that Scott, given that he was literally right there in the production, was able to be hey, we need to do this as an act of love for the fans, because without them, we wouldn't be making this movie. So I appreciate the point of the film was to kind of feed the inner child of all of us fans who have literally grown up in this fandom. We all started in elementary school or maybe middle school when this came out, and then we've literally grown up. We've gone through life milestones. We've graduated, we've gotten jobs, some of us have gotten married and started families. It's crazy. We've literally all grown up with this silly little Five Nights at Freddy's horror, series, right? So I think it's really cool that Scott kept us in mind when he directed and produced the movie. So I think that's really cool just to start out with. But anyways, long story short, I went into the movie kind of keeping that in mind, that it was gonna be probably a little silly or, not take itself seriously the entire time, and even then I still kind of had higher expectations for how they were going to bring the characters to life on screen, what the plot was going to be, stuff like that. And I can safely say that I was not disappointed. Keeping all of that in mind going into the film, I was not disappointed whatsoever. Were there a few things that the movie could have probably added or changed or adjusted or blah blah blah? Sure, but that kind of is the case with any movie, especially any video game or book adaptation movie, right? So, but that's my opening That's my introduction. That's my opening opinion. But now I want to get into the nitty gritty, and I want to I have the movie pulled up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like skip through it, piece by piece. I'm going to try not to take too terribly long, but I want to break down some of my favorite moments, and then some of the moments where I was like, oh man, it would have been really cool if, insert thing here. So let's go ahead and take a little journey back into the film. Okay, I'm pausing already because I liked that already, because you know how with movies, they always customize the intro. Like even Disney does it, Universal does it, probably every film company does it, where depending on the movie, they'll add a little something to the intro titles, right? To kind of immerse you. So I liked the little glitches there. It was kind of neat. Oh my god, pausing again. I think half the theater was giggling just because of I don't know, I'll get to that in a second, but silly in a good way, because again, FNAF is silly, concept silly, Night Guard silly willy, but it's even sillier knowing that this, I'm pretty sure, would have been the role that Markiplier would have had he been able to work out the whole scheduling conflict, because he was filming Iron Lung at the same time, which I'm also very, very excited to see how that turns out as well. But this is apparently, I think, the scene that he would have had, and he would have been this guy, and that would have been such an opening. Can you imagine how loud the entire theater would have been if the first face we see in the entire film is the king of Five Nights at Freddy's? I know a lot of people were kind of on the fence about cameos because they didn't want it to be distracting or break the atmosphere or the fourth wall, blah, blah, blah. They thought it would be too campy or too meta, it would be kind of weird to just see a YouTuber in the film. I don't know, me personally, because I am that cringe kid and I grew up watching these YouTubers and they mean so much to me and the FNAF community, a lot of us anyway, I really wish we could have seen Mark here. Because it's a brief enough scene, it's just the opening scene, it's over in 2 minutes, and then that would have been it. It's not like they would have casted Mark as Mike. That probably would have been a little much, to see Mark the entire time. We would have all been sitting there feeling like it was a live action playthrough or something, but just a cameo for the opening scene, I think that would have been really, really cool. And who knows? I'm pretty sure that it's a 3-movie deal. I think. Again, take this with a grain of salt because I learn everything from Twitter threads. So do not quote me on this, but I think, I'm not trying to spread misinformation by any means, but I think that it's a 3-movie deal. So I have read in a lot of places. And that maybe, who knows, maybe Mark or any other YouTubers who couldn't make it but were invited will be able to do cameos in the future films, and that would also be really cool. Oh my god, when I heard the ba-dum-bum-bum-da-dum-dum-dum, it's a little different than the game. When I heard it, I was so happy, and I was dressed as Foxy for opening night because I was like, I can't not go in cosplay. I'm seeing it twice, I might as well take one of those nights as an opportunity to dress up and feed the inner 12-year-old Foxy fangirl, so I did. I dressed up as Foxy, and when I heard this, I was like, oh my god, he said the thing! He did the dumb diddly dumb! And that's Kellen Goff, by the way. So, another neat little thing that I noticed, which is another niche thing that probably only some of the theory fans would know, is the Dream Theory book, which I think alludes to Matt Pat's Dream Theory about Five Nights at Freddy's 4 that literally broke the internet. Because it basically was a theory that said it was all a dream. But I'm pretty sure that little Dream Theory book in the beginning of that mall scene, where Mike is talking to a coworker, was definitely a nod to that. And then also this is the point where we start getting introduced to some plot. We don't know why at this point, but Mike is clearly, very touchy about kids being taken, which is why he accidentally beats the ever-loving crap out of some dad because his behavior looks suspicious when he just goes up and snatches a child saying, come on, come with me. And Mike is not cool with that. Doesn't ask questions, goes straight to the punching. So when I was in the theater, I was like, that seems like a trauma response to me. So what happened? What's Mike's story here? Why did he instantly go to all fists, no questions? Like, clearly he's been hurt. So I was interested to see if they would elaborate on that.
Tire Zone sales associate 2 months terminated, insubordination.
Steve Raglan. Yeah, we all knew. I'm pretty sure that wasn't really a spoiler, because literally Matthew Lillard himself was even saying #William. So we all knew that it was going to be revealed at some point in the film that this guy, Steve, was going to be William. But I was still interested to see, like, how it would be revealed, when he would show up, why he would show up, you know, like, how was he going to get involved or reveal his true identity? Right. So we learn that Mike has trauma. Yay, trauma! Because main characters can't not have trauma, especially in the universe of Five Nights at Freddy's. So we discover, lo and behold, Mike has trauma. He has a family, or had a bigger family than he has now. And it turns out he had a younger sibling. Guess what happened to the younger sibling in usual FNAF fashion? He died! More specifically, he got taken. So something I did notice after seeing the whole movie twice and then talking to like my family about our theories and such is that it almost is similar. It's like a combination between the Afton family's dynamic and the Emily family's dynamic in terms of like one sibling going missing, kind of like the books with the Emily family. Like, first we think Sammy's gone missing, then it's revealed that it was Charlie the whole time, blah blah blah, very confusing. But it's kind of like the movie was borrowing concepts from the games that were similar enough to draw kind of a parallel so that the fans could be like, oh, I see what you did there, ha. But then it could also be understandable to a general audience who has never read a book, never seen a game, and could say, oh, I see what's happening here. Just a thought, when I learned more about Mike's backstory, I was like, it's familiar to a fan and understandable to a general audience, which I think is a smart move.
You're the doctor, and you're making me feel like I'm the crazy one?
Show me Doug. Show me Doug. Yeah, Doug!
I have really tried to play nice, I have.
Oh, we all know and love Doug. Oh my god. Favorite character. But yeah, the plot thickens, right? So now there's a battle for custody. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. No, we're going in order, damn it. F you, Balloon Boy, you're not gonna distract me. I'm trying to make this as cohesive as possible, which I'm not good at, but I'm trying, okay? You're not gonna ruin this for me. You come later. So I have my first itty bitty tiny, like, oh man, they could have very easily done, but they didn't, was the very first time that Willie Steve picks up the phone, right? He should have said, hello, but he didn't. He only said one hello. I cry single tear. Now it's Balloon Boy's turn. So way back in the yonder days when the movie was announced and the cast was announced, or the characters that were gonna be in the movie were announced, and I saw Balloon Boy on the list, I felt my blood boil just a little. Now, if you've been with me, you know, however long, you know that I personally, very strongly dislike Balloon Boy and JJ, any Balloon Boy, Balloon Girl variant. I hate them all equally. It's equal opportunity hatred around here. I hate all of them. And so I was very, very worried that there was going to be like an actual Balloon Boy in the movie. There's not, so that's good, because I told my friend, I was like, I swear to God, if Balloon Boy appears on screen, I'm walking out of the theater. That's gonna be the moment I walk out of the theater. Everyone else was making memes about walking out of the theater because the characters are acting like actual kids, and that upsets them for some reason because they're not just silent and mysterious and scary, but we'll get to that in a second. But my moment when I walk out of the theater would have been if Balloon Boy actually appeared on screen. Which technically he does, but it was acceptable because it was just a tiny little figurine, and it was a cheap jump scare. 3 times. And it made me giggle. All the scenes of Mike in the woods with these kids were really cool. But I enjoyed all of these scenes. They're very simple in nature, but still, I was like, that's a neat concept. Honestly, I didn't think that we would see as much of the kids as we actually did get to see in the movie. Like, I thought in the trailers when it showed this little moment here that we were just gonna get one. But it's a repeating thing, like, and he actually gets to speak to one of the kids who's a little menace. Like, I fear no man, but this child, it scares me. Matt Pat's cameo.
Some people say that, but you know, it's just a theory.
I also like that Aunt Jane, again, I'm a book nerd from the original trilogy, so it immediately reminded me of like Aunt Jen, which I think is the name of Henry's sister, which I've also seen theories that maybe Mike's family in the film version is actually a closer parallel or is going to be the Henry family, like the Emily family, but his name is Schmidt, so I don't know. But there's a whole lot of name changing going on in the FNAF universe, so maybe Mike changed his name too. I don't know. But my point in bringing up this little diner scene is, like, I had a pretty chill theater experience. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of, like, screaming and cheering and memeing, thankfully, I guess. I mean, I personally wouldn't have minded a rowdy audience because, like, it's a more, like, energetic experience, bouncing off of the energy of the other hyped fans. Like, trolls in audiences aren't fun. Like, if people are constantly going, oh, is that Freddy Fazbear? Or, like, that'll get annoying. I'm sure. Like, that I agree with. But, like, just one is that's acceptable. I did that very quietly to myself. I was also one of the was that the bite of 87 people, but I said it to myself. Okay? I said it to myself. I didn't shout it at the top of my lungs. I said it to myself very politely, very quietly. Okay? For my own enjoyment. But, anytime there was a cameo on screen, you'd hear like a few people go like, oh my gosh, but it wasn't like everyone going like, wah! You know, so like it was a very chill theater that I was in. But I was very pleased to see that Matthew Patrick was on screen for this. I had a feeling. I was like, if they were trying to get Mark roped in, I feel like, and Corey, because Corey's in it, I'm like, he can't have been the only one.
Please, her name's Vanessa.
Oh god, she's so freaking hot! God, I love this actress. She's so talented and she's so freaking pretty! She's so pretty! Ah, gosh. First saw Elizabeth Lail in You, which is a Netflix series, and she does so good in that, but she also did a very good Vanessa in this story. But every time I see her now, I just think of the memes where it's just her face like, if you know what I'm talking about. And it's everywhere right now. It's everywhere. And it's so funny. She was perfect for this role, as was Josh Hutcherson for the role of Mike. And we'll get to Matthew Lillard's performance. We're saving him for last because, so good. So now that Vanessa is on screen, I feel like I can start actually talking about my predictions with her character and why she was there and blah, blah, blah. So initially my theory right out of the gate was that she was going to be William's daughter. I thought it was going to be a dad thing. Whether it be that William was her dad or like the chief of police was her dad, I thought it was going to be a dad thing of some kind, right? Because clearly she's too young that if this is like decades or at least 10 years later after all of the crime, that she would have been too young to like be on the case herself to like know about all that stuff. So I figure that it was probably going to be a family member thing. Again, more family drama, more family lore with all of these characters, as always. It's always daddy issues. God, everyone in FNAF has daddy issues. Ah yes, Bonnie having fireworks explode out of his ass. I will admit, there were a few shots in this film that made me cackle because of just how much I was not expecting it, you know? Like, not to say that I couldn't take the movie seriously at other times, but there were definitely a few shots or a few movements from the characters. Okay, here, let me demonstrate my favorite one. So, imagine I'm Freddy Fazbear, right? Right? Mike is sneaking around. There's memes about this, by the way, which makes me happy, because now I know that I'm not the only one who laughed at it. The animatronics are, like, performing on stage, right? They're distracted. Mike's sneaking around, trying to get somewhere, right? And Bonnie here, right? He's playing his guitar, and he looks over, and he's like, huh? Hey, yo, Freddy. do you seeing this? Right there? And then Freddy overhears like, yeah, now's my time. Oh, I'm feeling alive. It's so good to be alive. And meanwhile, Bonnie's like having an existential crisis and a stroke, trying to tell Freddy that Mike is literally right there. It's so funny. But then wait, that's not even my favorite part because it gets better. So Freddy finally, right, comes to his senses for a second and decides to check it out. But this is what he does. He says, he really says, and it was the funniest shit I have ever seen. Whoever threw that, your mom's a hoe. Like, but yeah, that was one of my favorite moments in the entire film. It's not until like near the end, but I wanted to talk about it now because I just, oh man, I thought you needed to know. Anyways, moving on, where are we? Right, Bonnie's exploding. He's got explosive diarrhea. Look, I don't hate this movie. I don't. I love this movie. I love the campiness, okay? I love it. But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna make fun of it, because you can't not for some of it, man. It's so good. But I'm doing it out of love. Oh my gosh, the moment where they all break in and fuck around and find out. Starting with our good man Carl here, which I find it hilarious. That I'm pretty sure in the movie the cupcake's name is just Mr. Cupcake or something along those lines. They never call the cupcake Carl, but I know that Carl was like the fan-given name for the cupcake. So I find it ironic and kind of clever that the character that gets his face mauled off by Mr. Cupcake, or Carl to some of us, is named Carl. So Carl gets eaten by Carl, and I think that's another one of those little details that's amusing. Oh, speaking of Easter eggs as well, his shirt, Carl's shirt, I think I mentioned this in the trailer analysis I did, but it's a Midnight Motorist reference, and then something else that I forgot to mention is after the Dream Theory book reference in the beginning in that mall scene, there's a rainbow on like the ice cream machine wherever Mike's getting ice cream. It's like a regular place he must go to because the woman who greets him is like, oh, your usual, blah, blah, blah. So he must go there a lot. But I noticed that the rainbow is it's the freaking rainbow from FNAF World. As well as also, I forget where, because I didn't notice them, but I read about it, is there's a couple of references to even, I think there's a reference to Scott's like pre-FNAF game. Like one of his Sit and Survive games or something. You could... I swear you can almost see it on this actor's face, and you can't see it. I can. But the guy in the I forget what his character's name is, but denim jacket guy, the one who watches this go down on the cameras, it almost looks like the actor's trying not to laugh. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Ah, right. So then Uncle Hank gets rickety-wrecked in the closet. Max. I want to talk about Max, the babysitter. Her scene. Oh my god. Oh my god, wait! I'm sorry. You can't see what I'm looking at, but I'm going like, I'm skipping forward by 10 seconds, and I just got to the part where Chica lowers Carl into the vent, and then Bonnie and Chica both just go to the camera after. Again, it's so silly, and I love it so much. Just the look they give, like, what you gonna do about that one, eh? Anyways, that's not the point. We're here to talk about Max and the bite of 87. The bite of 2000, whatever year this is. 2001? I don't remember. Anyways, this scene, right, caught me so off guard. I thought I knew what was gonna happen. I thought it was just gonna be, you know, crunch on the head. It was not. It was her whole it was her whole front half. And that's when I very casually said to myself, in shock, was that the bite of 87? But my god, that caught me so off guard. But the even more interesting fact is, because I've been kind of following, because now that the SAG-AFTRA strike is over, which huge congratulations to the actors and writers, by the way, kudos, very well done. I'm so relieved and happy for them that it turned out in their favor. But anyways, now that that is, you know, officially passed, and everything's been settled, the cast has been able to finally start sharing some of their really cool behind the scenes, or like what was cut from the film that was gonna be in it sort of stuff. And Max's actress specifically, I think her name is Kat Connor or Kat Connor Sterling. That's what she goes by on Instagram. But she's been posting a whole lot of stuff. And one of the things that she posted was about this scene, how initially her character was meant to have more like concern for the kid that she sees and follows, and says a line that said something along, honey, it's okay, honey, I'm not gonna hurt you. Like she's trying to comfort the child or make sure that the child is okay, or like senses fear in the child. And then something about like she was actually going to drown in a like giant pool of blue paint or something. But they ended up going with this bite instead. So that's fascinating. I don't know what the blue paint would have been like a metaphor of, like the tears of the children. She's drowning in the tears of the... I don't know. But I thought that was fascinating that she was able to share that information. Besides Max, also in this same scene, you get to see some of the costumes, like the spare costumes that are piled against this wall, which later the bodies end up being hidden in. But I noticed that there's like a Sparky, I think it's either a nod to Fetch from the books or a nod to Sparky, which I don't know how many of you remember Sparky, but it was like one of the very first sensational, viral, like fake Easter eggs on the internet from FNAF 1. It was that little silhouette that peeks in through the parts and service room door. And people were like trying to draw the outline of the silhouette to figure out, is it a dog? Is it Bonnie? No, it's not Bonnie. It has to be a dog. Let's name him Sparky. So I wonder if it's a nod to that or if it's just a nod to Fetch from the books, as well as the fact that right next to him is Shadow Freddy in the flesh, physically. Which this is the first time I think we ever see him physically exist somewhere, because I think even in the games, canonically, he's kind of just an ethereal being, kind of like Shadow Bonnie is, where they're more so either a hallucination or like a spiritual type of version, and later on, Max is stuffed inside of it. There are some interesting theories circulating that she may reappear in the next movie or next movie as Shadow Freddy, which would be pretty cool. I think I mentioned this in my trailer analysis as well, but I love that in the movie universe, they're literally just using merchandise that like us cosplayers use, like the badges, for instance. The first time he brings Abby to the building, this is when stuff starts escalating. So then they're basically like, yeah, we want Abby. Give us your sister. And in a hysterical, fit, Mike accidentally agrees because he wants his little brother back and he wants to not feel guilty about screwing that up anymore. And then, lo and behold, it's too late to take it back. So now, Freddy and the gang are ready to surprise adopt Abby. Starting here, when Abby starts drawing them pictures and she's like, they wouldn't stop tickling me. I thought I was gonna die. And you find out that like they're actually friendly with her because she's a kid, not an adult. So this is where people started complaining to be like, oh, this is so silly. Oh my god. Because she draws like pictures for them and they're like, it's so cute. Like, how could you not love this scene? It's so sweet. Like, I know that FNAF is supposed to be like scary and these animatronics are supposed to be like cold and silent and deadly and very terrifying, like ripping their own faces off and stuff. Which we didn't really get any of that in the film. The whole like self-mutilation thing with like Freddy ripping his mouth open or like Bonnie taking off his face, which technically was a scrapped thing, but it was in the FNAF 1 trailer for the game. Like stuff like that where it's like disturbing, body horror, like creepy things, eyes going black. You don't get that. So I get that some of the people might have been disappointed that we didn't get some of the like, I don't even know what you would call that. Because like FNAF 1 has its own very niche category of scary that I think people wanted to see more of that. And instead we got a very actually heartwarming and cute scene of all of them kind of just hanging out with Abby and enjoying her little doodles. Like she draws Bonnie a little heart and it makes him so happy and it's so cute. Like this is actually a scene that I think a lot of fans really enjoyed because we never really got to see these characters this friendly or this kind. We never got to, in the games, see what it looked like when these guys interacted with other kids. Like, we got Phone Guy's message about, like, oh, they're fine around other kids, but with adults, they just stare. But we never got to actually see that, like to see how these wounded kids get to very kindly and, you know, happily interact with another kid, which, you know, it all goes to crap later because then you find out that they're trying to assimilate her, so it's kind of a little disturbing. But right here, it's so cute. I love this scene. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I think it was awesome. And they get to build a fort together. They build a fort, and it's so funny. And Bonnie falls over. And it's so silly. Again, you can't see what I'm looking at, but when Abby leaves, you know, after she reveals to Mike, like, oh, they're my friends. They like pictures. And when she leaves, they all look so sad. Their little eyebrows are all sad. Freddy's so sad. Bonnie's still holding out his hand like he wants another picture. It's so sad. I loved this. I loved this entire section of the movie. Was I expecting anything like this? Absolutely not. I don't think anybody was. But again, it was a pleasant surprise to me. It wasn't a turnoff to me. I really enjoyed seeing, like, these are people's comfort characters, right? Freddy and the gang. So I'm sure that a lot of the like comfort character fans really enjoyed seeing these guys be friendly on screen. Anyways, let's continue. This video is gonna be so long.
2 hours later.
Ah, here we go. So I'm skipping forward in the plot a lot because it's mostly just, you know, evil Aunt Jane comes in, you know, like things, Abby figures out that, you know, Mike's trying to figure out what's best for Abby. Abby gets all like, oh, I hate you, Mike, I hate you. I'm more so here to talk about like the details I noticed, less about the plot and more about like things I picked up on. Pausing on this frame, which is somewhere either before or after Mike is strapped in the chair with the spinning saw blade Freddy face coming towards him, which we also never quite got to figure out why that mechanism exists. In this shot, like I had mentioned earlier, all the people that broke into Freddy's, right, including Max and Uncle Hank, 2 out of the 4, or 5, however many of them there were, are actually inside of 2 of the suits, which may or may not insinuate that they will make reappearances in future films when these suits come back to life, maybe. Oh my god, the scene where Aunt Jane is just sitting there on her recliner and then the camera like pans over and you just see Golden Freddy with his Megalovania Sans eyeball just standing in the background. I was not expecting him to be in their house. Again, there were so many moments in this movie that shocked me because I was not expecting them to go there. And I was just like, oh, yeah, he's just in the house. Perfectly normal. Well, just another Friday at Freddy's, or a Friday at home where Freddy is. It's weird. How did he get there? Did he take another taxi over and then get another taxi back? Like, did he walk? Does he even physically exist? He must, because Corey acknowledges him when they both get in the taxi. Because at first I was like, well, maybe he's just, you know, not actually there physically, but he's like, I don't know. I tried to explain it away, but it really does. It just boils down to the literal fact that Golden Freddy broke into Abby's home and is just standing in the hallway. Like, animatronics being in someone's house isn't a new concept in the world of Five Nights at Freddy's, but for some reason, this still shocked me. And here it is. She finally reveals that William Afton is her father, and that's why she knows so much, and that's why she's the cop in charge of this jurisdiction, this building, right? Because she's covering everything up. She's the one who hid the bodies of the people who broke in. She's the one who wiped up the blood, but poorly because there was still a tiny bit on the door. Come on, Vanessa, you're a cop. You should know better. But she's the reason that literally nothing has ever happened about like this place actually, like anyone ever actually getting into trouble, because she's covering it all up for her dad, right? She's hiding the bodies, wiping up the blood. She's covering for the murderous children. Wild, right? I kind of predicted it, but you know, it was still, I let out a shout of victory. Here it is! This is when Bonnie's like, Freddy. His hand, he's like, hello. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So early on in the film, you get to briefly have the explanation about what spring locks are, because Vanessa's like, I wouldn't touch that if I were you. So you get a brief example of like what the spring locks do, what they look like in the movie. But anyways, what I wanted to point out about this animatronic that Chica is trying to put Abby into, right? Because they're trying to assimilate her, and so she has to be one of them, so she has to die in one of these weird spring lock contraptions, right? But something I noticed about the one that they try to put Abby in is it looks an awful lot like Ella from the books. But just the design, like, it's not spot on. It doesn't look exactly like Ella, but it definitely looks like a nod to Ella. I don't know if that's lore relevant to the movie, if there's any connection we're supposed to make there. I know that Ella in the books, the trilogy anyway, is connected to Charlotte. But Charlotte doesn't seem to exist in the movies, per se. In fact, we'll get to the marionette in a second. That transition where the child who possesses Foxy, right, he's like standing in Pirate Cove watching Abby try to flee, and then he just like backs into the shadows and then re-emerges as Foxy. God, that transition goes so hard. That's so cool. Okay, another thing. There's so much book in this movie, if that makes sense. So many of these scenes, so many of the ways the characters are written or behave, which we'll also get more in detail with that later. Just a whole lot about the film felt like I was watching like a book adaptation, because it had so many, what I think might have been references to like different scenes in different either Fazbear Fright stories or just mostly the original trilogy. But if you've ever read The Silver Eyes, I think it's that book. The very opening like prologue is a scene of Charlie, grown up, or like teen Charlie, crawling behind these arcade cabinets to get away from Foxy, and he starts like flipping them over to like get to her. And so this scene where Abby is hiding behind arcade cabinets to get away from Foxy, I immediately thought of that. He unfortunately doesn't like flip him over or anything cool, but I understand that that would have been hard to do considering that he was one of the only not fully wearable animatronics that had to be puppeteered, so his movements were pretty limited, which is also, I think, why we didn't get to see him sprint down the hallway, which is another thing I was hoping to see, but he just kind of appears. Oh my god, the moment that Springtrap, right? I guess I'll just call him that for the sake of it being easier. I know that, like, technically he's probably still just William at this point. He's not dead, but give it time. This moment where he steps out from the shadows was so cool. I knew immediately when I saw the eyes, I was like, it's gonna be him. He gonna come out of the shadows. He gonna be all scary. He's gonna be all spooky. And sure enough, there he is. Good old Willie A in his true yellow rabbit form. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. The one, the only. Asshat. There he is. The suit and the way that William behaves in it is so Dave Miller. It is so The Silver Eyes. Like, it is spot on from the way that he just moves very, like, you know, character-y, if that makes sense. Like, he's a whole different person, but he still has that, like, guttural, angry, like, you know, very scary, like, man part. You know, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's very much just very reminiscent of the way that he's written in the books, which is honestly, in my opinion, a more exciting version of William than the games, where he's just kind of this, like, very sophisticated British man, you know, where he's just kind of in the background, or like literally an 8-bit figure, or just like Springtrap in FNAF 3 where he doesn't have a voice at all. But I really like that they went for a more Dave Miller vibe. I think it was more fitting for the film, considering like the vibe of it, you know, what they were going for. And Matthew Lillard did such a good job. Like, he really, and I know he's made posts about it too, now that he can, post-production, about like how much pressure he had put on himself to like bring such an important character so accurately to life. And my god, he did so well. Like, this entire scene, the whole time, I was just like, this is literally exactly how I would have pictured him. Like, if we ever got to see, you know, William's, you know, Spring Bonnie character on screen, this is it. Like the whole psychotic, like he's in control of everything, but he's also like, he's very serious, but at the same time, he's very like almost goofy, like the way he moves. There's a moment in here where he kicks Mike, and his freaking pose when he kicks him is so like cartoony, but very like fitting again of like the whole Dave Miller thing where he's very silly, like, but silly to a scary degree when he's in this suit. Like, he's a completely different person. Right, and then Vanessa, of course, confronts him, pulls a gun out on a real gun, not a taser gun, and pew-pews him, which, of course, doesn't take him out, unfortunately, and she gets hurt. I think she's okay, because... Sorry. I keep skipping ahead on the screen, and I just paused on the best Bonnie face. And Freddy. This is what their faces look like. I'll do my best, right? Because you can't see it. But this is Bonnie. And then this is Freddy. I love them so much. Oh my god. Anyways, back to business, right? Shit's going down. Also, going back to the whole like Silver Eyes thing, or this would more so be a Twisted Ones concept where once he is Springtrap in the books, he has control over the animatronics, or at least in the Twisted Ones, I think it's that he has control over the twisted animatronics, not these guys. But that concept is still borrowed in the film, where they explain, like, yeah, the kids are manipulated by him, like they're confused. They just follow his lead, basically, blindly and ragefully. That's why they're violent. That's why they just do as he says, because they've all been manipulated and fear-mongered into just doing whatever he says. You know, follow the yellow rabbit and whatnot. So then Abby makes this little drawing that depicts, you know, him as bad, and he's got like these little teeth, and he's got like a little knife in his hand, and it's such a silly little drawing, but it's also sad, right? Because it's, you know, a drawing of him killing them. So she puts that on the wall, and then, you know, the animatronics all look at it and go, oh, that's right, we don't like you. Again, very book vibe when William starts like shouting at them, like, I made you, look at how small you are. That line made me laugh. I don't know why. Just look at how small you are. Like, very him, right? To just be like, look at how small. Look at how, you were small. You were pathetic. And then last but not least, one of my favorite parts, of course, was getting to see the spring lock failure. Was it as explosive and like snappy and like, you know, as dramatic as a lot of people thought it would have been? No, it was actually pretty like slow. I think that the spring lock failure, the way they portrayed it, was one of like the more sensible ways to portray it, I guess, if that makes sense, where it's kind of just the pieces are released and then they kind of like slide in really slow. Like, it's almost worse than just to think that it's just pieces like clapping together really fast and just breaking bones, which it still kind of is insinuated that that's what's happening because he starts like jerking around a little bit. But the initial sequence of it starting is like really slow and agonizing, like just these like rib-like metal pieces just slowly like stabbing into him. And again, it's very much like a Saw contraption, but it was a good scene. I will say that they did a pretty decent job at like portraying how we could have envisioned it, but also keeping it so that the gore wasn't so intense that the rating would have changed. Because again, based on what I've read, like, I think there was more blood and more profanity, and they had to tone it down to be not rated R, so they kind of had to tiptoe around that. So maybe that's part of the reason that they maybe did a little gentler approach to the whole, like, because we're all used to the fan-made versions, right? Where animators have made it look really gruesome, and like there's that very classic audio that's fan-made where it's like exploding and just you know, like, and like the lullaby going on in the background or whatever. Like, we're used to that sort of interpretation of it, that like, sure, this on screen might have been a little underwhelming to some people, but I still think it was good, like, considering what they had to work with and, you know, rating.
How small you are! How worthless you are!
Oh, yeah, see that? Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's worse. Slow is worse, okay? Slow is worse. Get it, Matthew? Oh, it's awful.
I always come back.
Yeah, God, okay, my theater did go crazy for that one line, okay? And again, very Silver Eyes style, the animatronics come over and they drag him away. So you can really tell that I think Scott leaned very heavily on the concepts from his book. My inner child had already been so, like, fed, and then that song came on and I was like, oh my God. That was another one of the time that a lot of the theater started cheering, like, loudly. So I had a pretty, like I said, I had a pretty chill theater experience. Like, a lot of the people were pretty quiet, except for, like, very select parts of the film, including when this song came on for the credits. It's really cool that I got to see these guys perform live too. Not too long ago, I got to see them on the 1st of November, and it was such a cool experience. But what I want to talk about specifically is the fact that we hear the grandfather clock in the credits. And so a lot of people were, saying that that might very heavily insinuate that the next film will be based off of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And talking about the marionette circles me back around to years ago in the video when I mentioned something about getting back to the puppet. So again, more theory, not my theories. I will not take credit for these. This is all stuff I've read, but I figured I'd talk about anyway. But I have seen quite a few theories that Garrett, which is the name of Mike's younger brother, right, might be the puppet, because canonically in the film, he was the first. Supposedly, anyways, I guess. I guess it's not confirmed, but it very well seems like Mike's brother was the first one. But if they do Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I'd be really interested to see the toy animatronics on screen, because now they're not flocked and fluffy, they're like made out of metal and plastic, so it would be interesting to see how they engineer those costumes. Or like Mangle. Could you imagine them making Mangle? Like, that would be interesting. And then, of course, one thing I forgot to mention was the scene at the very end of the film where you see the Golden Freddy kid, staring at William, still dying in the suit. He's still going, still chugging along, still bleeding out probably. And he's like shaking and, his eyes are flickering, and he reaches for the kid and the kid just lets the door shut. So that's a really cool shot as well. On top of, him saying the iconic line, "I always come back," I'm sure we will see more of him as actual Springtrap now that he's quite literally trapped inside of that suit. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think the movie was great. Was it silly and didn't take itself seriously the entire time? Yes. Could it be laughable? Of course. I laughed, but I laughed in like an I enjoyed it sort of a way. In the entire process of making the film, advertising the film, and then the film itself, they definitely put a lot of love for the fans into it. And so even for that reason alone, I am grateful for this movie and the experience I had watching it. To an outside viewer who knows nothing about this, sure, it's a campy, silly horror movie. It's not great. That's why the critics have reviewed it. Like, Rotten Tomatoes score, I'm looking at it right now, it's 30%. That's not great. But, I don't think that Scott cares about that. He literally cares about the fans, which honestly to me is more valuable than just scoring high on a critic sheet, like the fact that the team and him cared more about the fans who have made FNAF what it is over the years and kept it so passionately alive. That means more to me than them trying to get a cash grab and just appeal to a general audience and expand, They don't need to expand. FNAF is already huge. I think this became Blumhouse's #1 box office earning film of all time, above Saw and any other huge film they've made. I think they've made Scream. But anyways, this video is probably long and painful and just a lot of me talking, which is kind of mostly the reason I wasn't gonna make this video, because A, I'm already late, and B, other people have videos that are much more condensed and streamlined and still cover even more than this one would. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, apologies that it's super long, but I hope you enjoyed nonetheless. If you did, feel free to leave a like or maybe comment what your favorite moment of the film was. I'll be marking this video in the title and the description. that there will be spoilers, so feel free to talk about whatever you want in the comments, like your favorite moments and whatnot. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next video, whatever that may be. Videos may be slower this month because I am taking a little vacation with the family, but when I get back, I will do my best to get uploads hopping again, because then it'll be holiday season. So anyways, love you guys, stay bright because you're a star, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.